SQL injection. Before we get into the depths of SQL injection, let us look into what SQL is. Structured Query Language, or SQL for short, is a language used by web applications to communicate and interact with databases. A set of SQL commands is called an SQL query. So, SQL injection. SQL injection is a vulnerability that allows attackers to inject malicious SQL commands into a web application. It sometimes allows attackers to bypass login screens, and successful exploitation allows attackers to compromise the entire database used by the web application. Let us look at the example of login bypass. This is what a normal login page looks like. As you can see here, there is a username field and there is a password field. And when the user hits login, the data is sent to a web application. In this case, login.php. Let us look into the source code of login.php. So here in the source code, the first two variables are username and password. And you can see here that it is collecting the data that is being sent from the browser, the first one being username and the second one being password, and stores it into a variable. And the third one over here, which is Q, is running an SQL query. You can see what it's doing. It is selecting from users, the table users, where username is equal to the username sent from the browser and the password is equal to the password sent from the user. If this is true, then the SQL database should return with a one row. If there is no result, then it gives an SQL error and dies. Let us see what happens if the number of rows is equal to 1. Then it says login successful and it authenticates the user. Suppose the result is not equal to 1, then the login is failed. This is what a normal login would look like with proper credentials. As you can see here, it is selecting from the table users where username is equal to admin and password is equal to admin. This would be the result sent back from the database. Here you can see the username is admin and the password is admin. So this authentication is true. Invoking a SQL error. Most attackers, when they try to find SQL injection, try to invoke a syntax error. So here in this case, the attacker has put a single quote after the word admin. So what does this do to the SQL query? It's the same query as before. So here, select from table users where username is equal to admin. Yet you can see here the attacker has opened a quote without closing it. So this will cause SQL to have an error, and you can see that it says you have an error in your SQL syntax. Check your manual that corresponds to your MySQL version. So this error, very famous error 1064, indicates that SQL injection might be possible. Now let's look at bypassing the login. Now instead of the username, the attacker has put single quote space or space 1 is equal to 1 semicolon hash. So let us see what happens to the SQL query when he does this. You can see here again the same SQL query. Select from table users where username is equal to nothing here or 1 is equal to 1. 1 is equal to 1 is always a true statement. So anything that comes after this is bypassed, and the user has also put in a hash symbol, and anything after the hash symbol becomes a comment. So the result from the SQL will also be a single table over here. So this will allow the attacker to bypass the login screen.